White governments don't want intelligent, critical thinking black populations. They instead only want black populations that are just smart enough to work, pay taxes, fight within their unjust wars, and that are smart enough to be hiddenly responsible for most inventions that have revolutionized the world. But they don't want us critically thinking. Because as long as we're not critically thinking, we can then be easily manipulated and we can be made to believe many things that literally insults our own intelligence. Given that the white oppressors don't want us critically thinking, that's precisely what we must start doing. Let's critically think. Have you ever considered just how cartoonishly unrealistic it actually is that virtually all information that we receive about ourselves from white sources are consistently negative? This is because keeping us believing that everything about us are negative demoralizes us, divides us, creates black self-loathing, and shifts black collective progressions away from the white oppressive society and redirects it towards and against ourselves. When the oppressed are demoralized, divided, and made self-loathing, we're much more easier to control and subjugate. It also attacks the core foundation of what bonds us as a people, and we can then be ruled over forever. It's a well-proven psychological warfare control system that utilizes the immense power that demoralization and shame has upon the human psyche to mentally enslave millions of black people. Those black people who do not critically think never notices their mental change. Let's critically think even further. Have you ever also considered just how cartoonishly unrealistic it also is that virtually all study results that we receive from white sources tends to favor themselves over black people? Think about that. Can you not see just how cartoonishly unrealistic it is to consistently have results so one-sidedly favoring one racial group over the other? It's astronomically ridiculous. It's also fraudulent propaganda designed to embed the subliminal message into our collective minds that whites are inherently superior to us. Subliminal messages are messages hidden within the propaganda that we receive that are designed to bypass our conscious mind but becomes embedded into our subconscious mind. When the belief that whites are inherently superior to blacks have been embedded into our subconscious minds, this causes many of us to feel subservient towards whites, and we become more compliant with white dominance over our lives. The fact of the matter is that the myth of the oppressor's racial superiority over black people only persists when they're the ones writing and controlling and distorting all of the information. Never forget that the white oppressors have never earned our blind trust, nor have they ever earned the credibility to control what black people believes about ourselves. Because the fact is that they've been telling negative lies about us for more than 400 years. A fact that they've conditioned many of us to forget. White oppressive forces weaponize their control over information against us. They not only whitewash all of their study results, their statistics, and societal narratives to favor themselves over us, they've also whitewashed history to make themselves appear more relevant throughout history than they truly were, while making us appear less significant throughout history than we truly were. To achieve that feat, they've turned many black historical figures white and have falsely given themselves credit for most achievements and most inventions that were actually made by black people. The white society sits upon a throne of white exalting and black marginalizing lies. This is a fact. Let's critically think even further. Have you ever noticed that within our communities that otherwise very intelligent people are now often believing, saying, and doing the most asinine things while wearing a straight face? Such as self-identifying ourselves by the N-word, insisting that using it now empowers us and that we made it our own word. Also routinely calling our women by the B word and the H word, sagging our pants and glorifying pimps and also insisting that we're now our own worst enemies, and believing that a Bible that was brutally beaten into the minds of our ancestors, our enslaved ancestors, will now set us free. These are all, in fact, asinine, idiotic beliefs, but incredibly, they're believed by millions of our people. Those idiotic beliefs were actually embedded into our culture and into our collective minds by white propagandists. Our culture has been deliberately turned upside down by way of negative social engineering by white oppressive forces. This is not some scapegoating to absolve ourselves of our own responsibilities. It's the absolute truth. Those who control the people's narratives and that control their media images are able to control their culture, because people's behaviors align with the narrative that they've accepted about themselves as being true, and they become those derogatory media depictions of themselves that they've accepted as being their reality. Most people naively believe that the media is used for nothing more than for entertaining and for informing the masses. This has never been the case. The media has been used to negatively steer the black culture. This is all possible because a group's identity is shaped by the narratives that they receive about themselves within the media. And the media also shapes, and their image is also shaped by how they are depicted within the media. People's behaviors align with the narrative about themselves that they've accepted as being true, and they imitate the media depiction of themselves that they've accepted as being their reality. Therefore, those who write the people's narratives and controls their media images are able to steer their culture. It's a true science known as media social engineering. Because white oppressive forces writes our narratives and controls our media images, this allows them to negatively steer our culture while misleading us to believe that we're steering ourselves. We African Americans are more susceptible to negative media social engineering because we were stripped of our true identity and culture during the enslavement of our ancestors. People that have been stripped of their true identity and culture are more susceptible to negative media social engineering. The ability of white social engineering scientists and white propagandists to influence the behaviors and steer the culture of the black population through their media depiction of us is immensely powerful. So much, in fact, that if they wanted black youths to start walking around every day with a yellow afro comb in their left rear pockets, all they would have to do is place that image in several rap music videos, movies, and TV shows being depicted as being very cool and trendy. In doing so, our black youths will then see the image and imitate it and then adopt the image as being their own, making it their own, although it's in fact actually not. The style and the behavior was actually created through white media social engineering. Our youths saw it repetitively in the media and they imitated it. It was secretly created by white media social engineering scientists and white propaganda designers. The fact is, we're literally their puppets. When these white social engineering scientists create trends and customs for black youths to imitate, they deliberately create those that gets our black youths acting and dressing as caricatures that reinforces resentment and anti-black prejudicial perceptions. Moreover, those images that reinforces many negative and racist stereotypes about black people. Black youths become those caricatures of the derogatory images and stereotypes that they accept. Don't be fooled. If the oppressors were truly superior, they wouldn't have to spread so many lies to convey it, nor would they have to work this hard to handicap those whom they claim are inferior. It is time to wake up to our reality. It's now been more than 400 years, over 400 years, since the first enslaved Africans were brought in chains to the U.S. If after all this time, you're still believing that our plight is connected to a biblical fairy tale written by our most ungodly enemies, or that we're being controlled by a silly slave syndrome myth, then you should be ashamed of yourself to be holding on to such ignorant, feeble-minded premises. There are social scientists that the white society deploys against us. They deploy information warfare against us. They exploit their monopoly over the information that we receive to feed disinformation into our minds that manipulates us to think and behave in ways that are against our own interests and that instead serves and protects the interests of the white society. This is the truth of our plight and condition. The white society controls all of our narratives, our statistics, our media images. They literally control what we believe about ourselves. In fact, one could say that our image of ourselves is still enslaved by the white society, and they maintain their dominance over us by keeping us believing that the fraudulent worse about ourselves, and they use this monopoly to negatively steer our culture. They tell us who we are. They tell us how we're supposed to act, how we're supposed to dress, how we're supposed to walk, how we're supposed to talk. This allows them to have us speaking Ebonics and have us dressing like sagging clowns and acting like ghetto buffoons. This is not scapegoating. They control our interpretation of ourselves. And you have to elevate your mind to free your mind. Wake up to the truth. One love and peace.